most people have Social Security benefits, right? It's one of the few things. You may not have a pension, you may not have other assets outside of a pension and Social Security, but Social Security will be available for all of the population as long as you qualify for it, and we'll get into that as well. So there is a big need for it. There is a big need for the education, and again, we're trying to avoid people from making a lot of damaging decisions because they're uninformed. So I want to make two guarantees. We're certainly, Seth and I are both going to present a lot of information. You will not be an expert at the end of this hour, that's for sure. But we're trying to make people, smarter about their Social Security decisions. And we believe that you'll be better prepared to make a good decision after this presentation. And the second thing is, we want to assure you there's no selling during this webinar. This will be recorded and sent out to all of you for attending. You'll get it first, and then this will also be available for others to review as well. So, but we want to make sure that you understand that it's a purely educational event that we're going to do today, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll have a lot of your questions answered as well. So, brief history of Social Security collection, signed into law in 1935 during President Roosevelt's presidency. Spousal benefits actually were not available until 1939 when they were added. Then in the 70s, again, basically you had most people that started collecting at 62. That's totally opposite now. You've got very few people collecting at 62 years old. And again, part of the problem is when Roosevelt created Social Security, people were not living into their 90s, hundreds, right? I mean, look at the obituaries today. Things have changed dramatically. Either people are taking better care of themselves, but longevity is here to stay and rising. And so as that happens, they're trying to deal with that. But in the meantime, the collection part of it is a little bit different. So, and workers are starting to retire later as well. That's key. Joyce is going to actually put up below a link to download this handout called The Baby Boomers Guide to Social Security. So please, click on that chat box, download that for your own perusal. It's very full of chock of information. You will be very impressed with all the information that's in there about everything. Everything from A to Z with Social Security. At the end of the presentation, as we always do, especially with Social Security, we're going to offer you the ability to get a customized Social Security analysis, whether it's dealing with spousal or divorce or survivor, break-even strategies, retirement spending, you name it. We've got a great piece that will be individualized. And, for a lot of people that are going through potentially collection strategies in the next, let's say, short term, in a year or two. Seth and I used to give a lot of public presentations before COVID in libraries, in colleges about Social Security. We gave up guessing. There were too many people that were corner us and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about collecting next week. What do you think?" I'm thinking it's good, and we might agree. And then we go back to the office and run the numbers. We're like, "Wow, I didn't see that would be such a difference, in the calculation." So we got to get back to that person and let them know that we rerun these things. And so, the customized Social Security analysis is key. So at the end of the presentation, we'll put up different information on how to take advantage of that as well at the end of today.
All right, there's some key things to know about Social Security. First of all, that there's a number of different claiming options. Unfortunately, the decisions that you make have far-reaching consequences. And when you start claiming, it used to be that you can go back a number of years to change your claiming options if you paid it back. Now they only let you go back around 12 months. Your choice can impact both your spouses because depending on who passes away first, it could have a direct impact on that survivor benefit. We get a lot of questions about if the system is going to go bankrupt or a Ponzi scheme. I can't tell you how often during a year we would get a question or just a statement from a client that would say, "Well, I don't want to count on Social Security." Well, that's not really a concern that you should have. This is also key. Your friends aren't experts. We routinely run into people that are already collecting because they took that old advice at taking at age 62 when it really would have been in their benefit to take advantage of a different strategy. Most baby boomers do want to know, and will Social Security be there for me? How much can I expect to receive in benefits? When should I apply? These are all common questions. And what can you do to maximize the benefits? And we'll share a number of those strategies as we get later on into the presentation. Typically, Social Security won't be enough to live on in retirement, although we do run into some people that are able to do it. But you shouldn't count on Social Security to be your sole income through the rest of your retirement. What happens at death? What happens to your spouse? What happens to the benefits that you're entitled to? Also, what if you get a divorce? These are key questions, and that directly has to do with how long you've been married. But first, we want to talk about some key definitions. First, you'll hear us use the term FRA. That stands for full retirement age. And what that is the Social Security Administration uses that to determine your unreduced benefits based on if you're age 66 or 67. You'll also hear us use the term PIA. That's your primary insurance amount. And that's the amount that you would receive at your full retirement age, your FRA. Early collection, that's as Dan mentioned before, that begins as early as age 62. And also delayed credits. What delayed credits are is you get an increase of benefit by waiting, even if it's a couple months. Every month that you wait beyond your FRA, you'll get delayed credits, increasing what your monthly benefit ultimately will be. Understanding the value of Social Security, and will it be there for me? So the trust fund is still growing. As of the end of 2019, it was at 2.87 trillion. But they also had 1.18 trillion of income, and they had less expenditures, meaning that they had a net rise in assets of 11 billion. So the trust fund actually at the end of 2020 last year was at 2.908. Bottom line for baby boomers is that your benefits are not likely to be adjusted by Social Security reform. They usually phase it in with people that will be going into the system later in life. So what's a clearer way to think about Social Security? Our first insight for the day is that Social Security is inflation protected income. You've paid the premium for every paycheck, and so you want to be very smart about how and when you want to collect. And a lot of people don't realize how much in lifetime benefits you actually get. So if your monthly benefit is $2,000 today and you live for another 10 more years, you'd receive $276,000. Now, I'm not going to go down every one of these charts, but this assumes a 2% annual cost of living adjustment. But you see, if you are collecting Social Security for 30 or more years, it's equal to over $1 million in lifetime benefits. So that could be very substantial with regards to your retirement. Conversely, with the cost of living adjustment, you can see that 2% has a big impact. So the 2% on $2,000 in 10 years, you'd have a benefit of $24.38. And in 30 years, just over $3,600 a month.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, how much you can expect to receive when you start collecting Social Security at various ages. Again, it's going to depend on your working career and the age at which you apply for benefits. So typically, in order to get benefits, you have to have worked at least 40 quarters or 10 years to be eligible for benefit whatsoever. Each person has their own set of rules. That's key. We always mention that to people because it doesn't matter what your spouse did. If your spouse took it early or late, has no bearing on you. If your spouse took it early and then you get there down the road, as long as you waited, the rules apply to you and you alone. So at age 62, each year's earnings are tallied up and they're indexed for inflation. So, what if you had some years that were, very low as far as earnings go? You were a 22-year-old kid working a part-time job, making $1,000 one summer as a lifeguard. They bring it forward and adjust it for inflation 30, 40 years later and figure it out. Common misconception with Social Security is that they're looking at, your last 10 years of earnings, your lifetime of earnings, all false. It's your highest 35 years of earnings are averaged. And that goes with the 35 highest years, inflation figured into the calculation as well. Benefits again are adjusted for COLA. So, the best way to estimate your Social Security benefit is to either go to one of these websites. We like SSA.gov, that basically then allows you to open up your own account, which we recommend that you should do. Um, and basically, it's completely secure, and you'll be able to see exactly your entire record will be on there. They used to send them out by paper form, right? And they tried it even one year to send it to every single person that's ever put money into the system, but that was a miserable experiment, way too costly. So now, we recommend you go on SSA.gov to kind of see what your benefits are going to be and see what you've paid into the system as well. Okay, actually applying. We tell every single person that comes in the door, everyone that will listen to us, to apply online. We don't want people going down the old way, right? Which is going down to the Social Security office in Poughkeepsie or wherever you are, and then sitting down behind the 2-inch thick bulletproof glass, which I have no idea why that is, and then basically talking to somebody. When you're talking to somebody face to face, you have no record of it. That's it's he or she or whoever's taking the application, it's their word against yours. So we always think it's much better to apply online. You don't have to set up an appointment weeks or months ahead. Or if you're going to do it over the phone, you could be on the phone for an hour or 2 hours waiting for someone to do it. You apply online, you apply, and then they will contact you. Isn't that great? You don't have to sit there and wait for hours on a phone. They will contact you based on some time periods that you give them to call you and verify everything that you've put into the actual application itself. It's the best way to have a physical record because, again, we put on the bottom here kind of some verbiage that we specifically write on the application online before we're ready to submit it and push the button to submit it for a client. We write out exactly what we're doing. Hey, I am applying for Social Security benefits at my earliest age, which would be September 2020. I realize I'm also entitled to either 50% of my spouse's benefits or my own, whichever is greater. But my husband's not going to collect right away. But I understand that when he collects, Social Security will reevaluate at that point. We're putting everything down like we're in fifth grade. And basically, then at that point, they can contact us afterwards and say, well, based on what you put in your remarks section, that's exactly what you've done. You've applied the right way. And then we can kind of go from there. So actually applying online, we love it. This is kind of how the statement looks. So in this case, you can see at the top that basically, the payment would be, which is basically a personal insurance amount, is $14.08 a month at this person's full retirement age. So if you look at the PIA at 1408, that would be at 66. So this would be someone who was born between 1943 and 1954. If you're born between 1943 and 54, your benefit age is 66, and then it changes beyond that. But in this case, this person has a PIA record of 1408 a month, and if they wait until 70, then they would have 1895 a month. If they took a 1 year earlier, from full retirement age at 1385. Why would someone want to do that? Well, that's when Medicare typically kicks in. So a lot of people, in the past, they used to sign up for Medicare and apply for Social Security benefits the same day. In this case, because people's benefits a little bit longer beyond that, then a lot of times they'll go on for 65, sign up for Medicare Part A, Part B, and who knows what else if they need more than that. And then they'll wait a year, potentially in this case, if they want to wait till full retirement age. You can see basically we got a break even basically at 1408. But here's the thing: like if you look below here, and I'm probably jumping ahead here, but you just look at this person's record. Okay, so you've got some numbers in there. So this is this person's record that basically is getting 1408 a month at their a full retirement age. That's the PIA record. So, and you can see that you've got some years in there where you've got, 4 or 5 years of zeros, right? So that could be a legitimate, correct situation, but it also could be an error. And clients have and people have found errors before where it didn't get reported. And so, it might be important. So that's why you should always check those records. The early you are at catching a mistake that's on your actual earnings record statement, the better chance you have of getting it. But more importantly, let me draw to your attention to what we've highlighted on the page. This person paid into the system $48,371. That's what this person paid into the system to get a benefit of 1408 a month. That means this person is going to get paid back within 35 months or 2 years and 11 months, everything they paid in for their entire lifetime. That's pretty impressive, right? I can guarantee you this. President Roosevelt never expected it to be this good, where all of a sudden you're getting back everything that you put in for a 30 or 40-year earnings record. You're getting everything paid back in less than 3 years. And that's typically what we see. So I want to bring that to your attention as well. Okay, good to know. Why shouldn't I claim early at 62 instead of delaying until full retirement age or even age 70? Good question. So insight number 2 is, your monthly benefit will be reduced if you claim early, and that's a lifetime reduction. All right. If you take it at 62 instead of your full retirement age, it's not like all of a sudden you get to 66 and now all of a sudden, you only had a penalty of 4 years. You're deciding because of that choice you made to take early, you are deciding that you're going to make a lifetime decision of taking a reduction for the rest of your life because of when you started collecting. So applying for Social Security at the optimal time. So you have a lot of things to consider when you're going to collect benefits. It's not as easy as in the past with short life expectancies way back when. Whole different ballgame. Today, you have to look at your income needs, both now and in the future, your life expectancy, and more importantly, your spouse's life expectancy. What you do, what you choose, can actually cause your spouse to get less. When we talk about survivor benefits, we'll come back to that. So when should you apply for benefits? Different factors to consider. First of all, health status is one thing, right? Life expectancy. So if you're a very healthy person, you've got a long life expectancy, you don't have a tremendous need for income right now, it's perfect. You might want to delay, but there's 3 of those things that you want to consider right away when you're looking at different factors. Whether or not you plan to work afterwards, that's key. Survivor needs, especially your spouse. Okay, will Social Security be enough to live on in retirement? Let's face it. I think we all know of people that Social Security is their only source of income, right? I mean, if you're older than me, 50s and beyond, you probably know. Maybe it was your own parents that have just Social Security as their only source of income. Thank God for it, right? Because they would have had none. But it's probably not going to be enough in its current format, but basically it is a major source and sometimes the only source of income for retirees. Full retirement age, here's a chart I talked about before, right? So if you're born between 43 and 54, your full retirement age is at 66. That means that you will not get a reduction of benefits whatsoever. But if you're born anytime in 1955, then the full retirement age becomes 66 and 2 months and the 66 and 4 months. And then if you're born in 1960 or later, any year after 1960, then from there, your full retirement unreduced benefit will be 67 years old instead of 66. What if you apply for early benefits? Again, you can still get benefits as early as 62. They're not excluding you from doing that, but there are bigger haircuts. So in this case, if we look at somebody in that first column that has a full retirement age of 66 years old, they can take it at 62, but they're going to have a 25% lifetime reduction in benefits. Now, for someone who is, 1960 or over, their full retirement age benefit's going to be 67 years old. So in this case, they'll still be able to get a 62, but they're going to have a 30% lifetime reduction in benefits. That's huge. Now, what if you want to wait beyond it? There are plenty of people that do it on their own, and there's plenty of folks as well that we've convinced that they want to wait even longer than full retirement age to receive their Social Security benefits. In this case, Social Security rewards people that wait beyond full retirement in the tune of adding 8% per year for benefits. So in a person that, let's say, has a full retirement age of 66 years old, now what'll happen is every year they wait beyond full retirement, they're going to have 8% added towards their Social Security benefits forever, which is great. So if they wait till 70 years old, now they're going to get 132%. So 32% higher than when they would have received at full retirement age. On the column on the right, for someone who was actually, has a full retirement age of 67 years old, they're still going to be able to do the same thing. They're going to be able to wait until 70. But again, since full retirement age is 67, they're only going to get 3 years of extra income. So they'll have 24% higher benefit than the column in the middle, which is 32%. But again, big rewards for people that wait. We'll come back to that. Okay, reasons not to file before full retirement age. If your benefit will be permanently reduced, right? We just went over that. If you're still working, if you continue to work, okay, in 2021, for every $2 you earn above 18,960, that's 1,580 a month, you're going to physically give back or have a reduction of $1 of benefit. So if you get to a point where you're making too much money, you're going to have to give back most of your check. And we highly recommend that you probably might want to rethink that. In the year you reach full retirement age, Social Security actually, is a little bit different. They will allow you to make a higher amount. 50,520 is the 2021 level. That's 4,210 a month. But for every $3 above that, they're going to take back $1 of benefits. And then again, if you receive benefits early, that will also affect your surviving spouse's benefit will be much lower as well. So that's key. Why delay benefits? Bigger checks to start, right? So, if we look at someone that has, let's say, a PIA of $3,000 a month, and we're looking at 2% annual COLAs, why are we looking at 2% annual COLAs, cost of living adjustments? It's very simple. Social Security has had cost of living adjustments every year since 1975. They're averaging about 2.8% a year. And there's only 3 years that Social Security did not have a cost of living adjustment: 2010, 11, and 2016. So, we always tell people you probably can expect somewhere between 1% and 2%. The good news is that might be the only source of income that you have that really does increase at least somewhat with some kind of cost of living adjustment. But that's huge. So typically, if you look at someone in this case with a $3,000 full PIA amount, they would have received that at 67 years old in the middle if their FRA was 67. But again, if they take it at 62 instead of 67 years old, they're going to have a 30% haircut, right? So they're going to lose $900 a month for the rest of their lives. And obviously there's less money, less benefits, less cost of living adjustment as well. So that's huge. Again, more income later on. So if we look at, inflationary adjustments along the way, if you live until, 80 years old, let's say, that $3,000 a month benefit that you had if you took it at 67, at age 80 would be 4,285. If you claimed early at 62, and then we had a cost of living adjustment of 2% on the smaller amount, now it's only $3,000 a month at age 80 versus the middle was 4,285. And if you believe you're going to have a long life expectancy with good health as well, a reason to wait maybe the longest, you'll have $5,313 at age 80 instead of the middle at 4,300 and obviously 3,000 at on the far left. So that's huge when you look at the cost of living adjustments along the way. How can you maximize benefits? Again, the key is improving that earnings record, right? Is it accurate, right? Are there any missing years? Getting in touch with Social Security and making sure that there's errors that are corrected. And it's pretty simple. You have to just pull out an old tax return, give them a pay stub or give them the W-2 that basically reported. You can say, here you go. I worked that year. Here's my proof. Can you improve your benefit by working longer? Again, we talked about this before, going through and looking at how much you put in and how much you're getting out pretty quick. Okay, taxation of benefits. We talked about a reduction of benefits. Taxation of benefits is huge because taxation means that how much of your benefit are you going to put on your tax return and pay income taxes. In New York, and most states, Social Security benefits are tax exempt in New York State. That's huge, right? So for some people, that's big. So we're only really talking about the federal level. And on the federal level, nobody will ever pay taxes on 100% of benefits. The worst case is you may only pay taxes on up to 85% of benefits. Okay, that's huge. So when we're looking at taxation of benefits, if we look at the first column, married filing jointly, if your income is under $32,000 for the year, that includes half of your Social Security benefit, then you pay zero tax on Social Security benefits. But once you make between $32,000 and $44,000 as taxable income, you're going to be putting up to 50% of your benefit on the return. Once you're over 44,000, you're going to put 85% of your benefit on the tax return. We're not saying you're going to pay 85% tax on it. We're saying you're going to take 85% of your benefit and put it on your tax return in order for it to also be taxed. But 15% of it's still not going to show up on the tax return. So that is huge too. But that's taxation, much different than a reduction or giving back benefits altogether. I'm not going to live long, so why shouldn't I just claim my benefit while I can? We get that in a lot of presentations. Insight number 3, for couples, you should always maximize the higher earnings benefits to protect the surviving spouse. So a lot of times what we try and do is we try and have the person that has the best earnings record, that worked the longest, that maybe is the oldest. We try and have that spouse wait as long as possible, sometimes to full retirement age, sometimes beyond it. 70 is the worst case. In other words, if you work beyond 70, there's no incentive to wait longer than age 70. Social Security is not going to reward you anymore by waiting longer than full retirement. So we don't have anybody waiting beyond 70 to start collecting a check. But in this case, for couples, we always like to try and get one person at least to wait as long as possible. More women qualify for Social Security benefits on their own record than in the past. So when we look at, in good old 1970, you figure, if that purple column on the left, 92% of people were, as men, were qualified for their full benefits. But back in 1970, only 63% of women qualified for their own benefit. That was huge. Today, 85% of women, and this is an old stat, and it's the most recent one we can get. 2010, 85% of women are eligible for their own benefits today, and that's a key difference. So let's go through that a little bit. Okay, let's go through spousal benefits. Let's spend a little bit of time on this, okay? So the spouse is entitled to the greater of the worker's own benefit if eligible, so 10 years of paying into Social Security, or their own benefit, right? So the greater of their own benefit or 50% of the worker's benefit. So, if I'm married, so, if my spouse went to collect a Social Security benefit, because we're married, she's going to be able to get the higher of her own benefit first or 50% of mine, whichever is greater, providing one thing. I have to be collecting my benefit. If I am not collecting my benefit, then my spouse, even though she's elected to potentially go in and start collecting her own benefit, Social Security will not be able to look at my benefit and pay her on that until I actually start collecting it myself. That's the rule. Okay. Now, if the spouse applies before full retirement age, then the spousal benefit's also going to be reduced. So, for example, if there, let's suppose that there was a spouse didn't have any earnings record themselves, right? Let's suppose somebody just stayed home, took care of the kids, raised family, which is an important job, but didn't earn any income. In the past, we'd have folks coming in thinking that they didn't have any chance of getting a benefit. Not true. But since they didn't have their own benefit, they couldn't actually go in and apply for their own benefit until they turned 62 and until their spouse was also collecting, right? So if you don't have enough earnings record yourself and you're married, you'd have to wait for your spouse to collect before you can collect theirs. And if you had no earnings record yourself, then there's the only option you'd have. In this case, when somebody goes in and collects their Social Security earnings record, let's say it's 66 or beyond, depending on when their full retirement age benefit is. If you waited to collect your spousal benefit until your full retirement, doesn't matter when your spouse collected, even if your spouse went in and collected at 62, if you waited to your full retirement age, all right, which is 66 if you're born between 43 and 54 or beyond 1960, is 67 years old, then you'd be eligible for 50%. But if you went and collected early, you're going to have a reduction on the 50% because you waited as well. So in this case, on the left, 35% is what you'd be able to get on that spousal benefit at 62. And then if your spouse, if the full retirement age was 1960 or later, then you got 32.5%. So you're going to have bigger reductions. Okay. The spouse of a worker entitled to Social Security can always claim a spousal benefit. That's so important. Entitled means the worker is eligible for Social Security and has filed for benefits, right? So, Jack and Jill in this case are married. They're both 66. Jack is paid into Social Security all his life. That's great. But Jill has never worked. Okay, that tells us an important point right there. Jill is not going to have her own benefit. Why? She didn't have at least 40 quarters or 10 years paid in. So she will have to wait until Jack files for benefits. Once Jack files for benefits, Jill can simultaneously file for spousal benefits, not before that. Okay, so in this case, Jill is going to be entitled to 50% of Jack's PIA amount. Doesn't matter, even if Jack retired and started collecting benefits earlier than 66. Doesn't matter. Long as Jack is collecting, Jill can go in and start collecting her benefit. Okay, another example for spousal benefits. In this case, John's PIA is $2,000 a month. John's collecting his benefit, right? So that's important. But Jane also has enough of her own record. She's got a benefit of $800 a month, right? So right away, we're thinking, okay, if Jane applies at FRA, right, her full retirement age, she's entitled to her own benefit, $800 or 50% of Jack's. Again, right? Note, Jane's collection rules have nothing to do with John's, right? So if John collected early, has no bearing on Jane. Jane, if she waits till full retirement, she'll get 800 or half of Jack's benefit of what he would have received at full retirement age, not what he started collecting at. In this case, Jane's going to be better off getting the $1,000, which is half of Jack's instead of John's and instead of her own. On the flip side, if John is not collecting in this case, all right, so we know already he's not collecting. Jane's PIA is $800. If Jane waits until full retirement age, let's suppose Jack, I keep saying Jack, Let's suppose John in this case is waiting until 70. That's his plan. He's going to wait till 70 to collect his own benefit, even though Jane waited till full retirement age, and she's eligible to collect half of John's benefit at her full retirement age. Because he's not collecting, she'll only be able to get her own benefit, which is 800 hours, since John's not collecting. Now, once John finally goes in at 70 and starts collecting, Social Security will not give her a retroactive payment, but they will reevaluate it. Now, it's important to realize that even if John waits till 70, which will give him a 32% higher check, Jane is not entitled to that. Jane is only entitled to 50% of what John would have received at full retirement age. Again, goes back to the previous slide. In this case, Jane will finally get $1,000 a month once John starts collecting his benefit at 70 or beyond his full retirement age. Okay, rules for spousal benefits. So the primary worker must have filed for his or her benefit for the other spouse to be eligible. The spouse must be at least 62 for a reduced benefit, right? 35% of a PIA worker's benefit, or a 50% of a worker's PIA if they waited to full retirement. Spousal benefits are based on the worker's PIA, not on his actual benefit, right? So if they took it early, doesn't matter. No delay credits on spousal benefits after full retirement age. You can't participate. And if you're married, marriage only has to be 1 year on the books, right? So if you recently got married, and you want to collect, let's say, a spousal benefit, all you have to do is be married for 1 year, and you're able to collect benefits on that married spouse's record, or your own, of course.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the coordination of spousal benefits. And when we look at a maximization strategy, where the lower earning spouse's PIA is actually more than 50% of the higher earning spouse's PIA. Both spouses can delay till age 70, and one spouse can take advantage of spousal benefits if it's allowed. What this does is it maximizes the lifetime benefits over average or long life expectations. And that's really key. Let me go back that one slide. If you have longevity in your family, waiting as long as you possibly can really makes a huge difference. That extra 8% that you get per year after your full retirement age, we like to tell people that come into the office that there's basically no investment that can guarantee you 8% a year every year, guaranteed. There's also a hybrid strategy that we look at, where the lower earning spouse, and this has to do with one of the examples that Dan just went through, is actually less than 50% of the higher earning spouse. So we would then have the lower earning spouse go in and claim on their own benefit early. But then we have the higher earning spouse claim getting their delayed credits at age 70. And what that does is it generates that income sooner for the couple while maximizing the higher earning spouse's benefit over both lifetimes. And that's kind of key. It's almost like a little built-in life insurance policy, because whenever you have one person pass away, whoever survives will keep the higher of the two Social Security checks. So here's an example of the hybrid. John, go back to John and Jane. His PIA is $2,000 at 66. Jane's PIA is $800 at age 66. We would have Jane go in and apply at age 62 to receive that reduced monthly benefit of $600 a month. Then John can wait until age 70 and collect on his own record for $2,640. And as Dan was alluding to before, once John applies, Jane is then entitled to her spousal benefit, which would give her an increased benefit of $1,000 a month. So an extra $4,800 per year in benefits. Well, I'm already widowed or divorced, so how does that impact my Social Security claiming strategies? That takes us into our fourth insight. If you're widowed or divorced, you may be eligible for survivor benefits, divorce survivor benefits, divorce spousal benefits that can increase your monthly check.
Sorry about that. Let's spend some time and talk a little bit about survivor benefits now. surviving spouse is entitled to 100% of the greater benefit, but that's going to depend at the age at which the deceased spouse originally claimed his or her benefit. We call that the original benefit. So if the deceased claimed before full retirement age, then the survivor benefit is going to be limited to the higher of the deceased spouse's benefit, or 82.5% of his PIA. Can't be lower than that. If the deceased claimed after FRA, then the survivor benefit's going to include those delayed credits. So remember, we just spent some time talking about the fact that the spouse could not participate in the delayed credits of that spouse. That's only while they're alive. Once a spouse passes on, then that surviving spouse is able to cash in on those delayed credits as well. Number two, survivor benefit also depends on the age at which the widow claims a survivor benefit. We call that the actual benefit. And if the survivor claims before full retirement age, then the survivor benefit's going to be a fraction of the original benefit. It can't be lower than 71.5% of the PAA if it's claimed at 60, but it could be that low. If the survivor claims an FRA or later, then the survivor benefit's going to equal 100% of the original benefit. So in most cases, we just tell people the surviving spouse is entitled generically to the greater of the two checks. So if I was getting $2,000 a month, my spouse was getting 800, I passed away, her check would stop. She would stop getting the 800 and she would jump up to the $2,000 a month that I was getting if we use it generically. Okay, now if the spouse dies while both are receiving benefits, then the widow just simply switches over to the higher benefit. And that's most of the time what's happening. So in this example, Joe and Julie are both married. They're both over full retirement age. Julie had a benefit of $2,000. Joe's benefit's $1,200 a month. Julie dies. Okay, we know right now Joe's a survivor. Joe notifies Social Security and his $1,200 benefit's replaced by that $2,000 survivor benefit. So that's the easy case. In this case as well, when we look at a delayed claiming strategy, here we have Joe and Julie are married. Julie's PIA is $2,000 a month. Julie files for Social Security at age 70, right? So she waits and gets delayed credits. She can have a 32% higher check to $2,640 a month when she finally collects. Julie then dies at age 70. Now, Joe's survivor benefit will be equal to Julie's benefit of $2,640 a month, only if he started collecting at full retirement age. If Joe claimed his survivor benefit at age 60, instead of getting the $2,640 a month, he's going to get 71.5% of the original benefit, or $1,887. If he waits until his full retirement age benefit, which would be 66 or 67, then he'd be entitled to the 2,640. So again, you are affected by both. Okay, case study number one. Here we have a survivor that has a higher PIA than the deceased spouse. So Bob, in this case, has a PIA of $1,000 a month. Rachel has a PIA of $2,500. Bob dies at age 58 years old. Rachel can then collect Bob's survivor benefit at age 60, and then Rachel would collect 71.5% of Bob's benefit at FRA, $715 a month. And then what happens is Rachel can then allow her, since her benefit's the greater of the two, she would never want to have Bob's benefit. Her benefit's always going to be higher than Bob's. But she can go in and start collecting his benefit and then allow hers to continue to grow to the point where it can reach full retirement age, and she could continue to have that grow with delayed credits, and then go back in at 70 and say to Social Security, hi, remember me? I was here already. I collected survivor benefits on my deceased spouse. Guess what? I'm here for my own. I want my $3,300 a month, and they would do that. On the flip side, let's look. We looked at what if it's lower. In this case, Bob has the PIA of $2,500. Rachel has the smaller PIA. In this case, same example. Bob dies, poor Bob. Bob dies at 58 years old. So Rachel doesn't collect any benefits at age 60. She collects her own benefit at 62. Is she eligible to collect Bob's benefit at 60? Yes, she is. She can go in, but we would advise her not to, because once she collects Bob's reduced benefit, she's not going to get the $2,500. That's for sure. And she's not eligible to get her own as well. So in this case, even though Social Security went through a tremendous amount of revamping in 2015 during one of President Obama's last years, they did not touch, they did not revamp any of the survivor benefits. That's key. That's really important that they did not mess with any of those rules. In this case, we would have Rachel go in at 62. She's only going to get a fraction of that $800 a month, because if her $800 benefit at full retirement, at 66 or 67, she's only going to get 800. So she might be only entitled to $500 or $600. But the key is, then she can go in and collect her own survivor benefit at 66 years old. So at 62 to 66, she's getting something coming in, $500 or $600 a month. She does have to be careful as far as how much money she's earning in order not to give that back. But in this case, she can still wait and go in at her own full retirement age and then collect that full $2,500 once she reaches age 66, her full retirement age. Okay, so the couple, in order to do any kind of survivor benefits, a couple had to have been married for at least 9 months. So remember, little different than the 1 year we just went through. If a married couple is going to collect benefits while they're living, they need to have been married 1 year. Here we're talking about a death. In this case, if they were married and it only was 9 months ago, then that surviving spouse is going to be able to collect that deceased spouse's benefits. Now, the survivor must be at least 60 years old for a reduced benefit, or age 50 if disabled, or full retirement age for full benefit. Survivor benefits are not available if the widower remarries before age 60, or age 50 for disabled survivors, unless the marriage ends prior to age 60. So theoretically, somebody could, remarry. Now they're not 60 years old. If they get divorced and then go in at 60 and start collecting benefits, Social Security would pay them their survivor benefits based on that deceased spouse. Divorce benefits are something else that's very important as well. Same as spousal benefits, but the marriage here has to have lasted 10 years or more. So we've seen cases where, again, people don't plan for those things, but we ran into somebody that was married 9 years and 10 months. We've met some people that were married 10 years and 1 month, and just by stroke of luck, because I'm telling you, most people are not, if you're getting divorced, you're not trying to hang in there. Most people aren't for that 10-year period, but 10 years is the key. Person receiving the divorce spouse benefit has to be currently unmarried. So you cannot get remarried and collect those divorce spouse benefits. And in order to collect on a spouse's benefits, the ex-spouse has to be at least 62 years old, on top of, obviously, the person collecting those benefits also has to be 62. Now, if there was a divorce, then it's got to be at least 2 years removed. Then that ex-spouse can file for benefits based on that ex-spouse that they're divorced from. Yes, more than one spouse can receive benefits on the same worker spouse. I mean, theoretically, it could happen. I mean, if you get someone that was married 2 or 3 times over a 30-year period, and that divorced spouse each time never got remarried each time, as long as they were married 10 years, and basically did not get remarried, they're eligible for divorce spousal benefits. Benefits paid to an ex-spouse does not affect those paid to the worker, the current spouse or other ex-spouses as well. Everybody has their own rules. Divorced spouse benefits stop upon remarriage of collection, not upon remarriage of the primary worker. So again, primary worker that the benefits are being paid off of has no bearing. Whether they got remarried or not, it's the person that basically is collecting those benefits. And again, it has to be last more than 10 years. Okay, Jack and Jess were married for 30 years. Jess never worked. Okay, that tells us something right there. They divorce when Jess is age 58 and Jack is age 62. Jack's PIA is $2,500 a month. Jess can collect a reduced benefit at age 62 of $812 a month. Or at her full retirement age, she can collect $1,250 despite not having a work history. That's key, right? Because she never worked, she doesn't have her own benefits. So it's a lot more complicated than most people realize.
So we're going to just start to review a few of these things now. Long story short, people are absolutely hurting their retirements by making costly Social Security mistakes. Some key points to remember: if you apply early, your benefit starts lower and stays lower for life. The cost of living adjustments magnify the impact of the early or delayed claiming. Long story short, the longer you live, the more beneficial it's going to be to delay those credits. Your benefit may be taxed and reduced to cover Medicare premiums, but don't let the earnings test discourage you from working. Delaying benefits may give the surviving spouse more income, and that's key with what Dan was just talking about. The key insights from our overall presentation today include that Social Security offers inflation-protected income that you can't outlive, including the benefits for survivor. And that's something that we really take a lot of time going through with regards to speaking with clients and planning for Social Security. Remember that your monthly benefit will be reduced if you claim early. And we always try to encourage to maximize the higher earnings benefit for a surviving spouse. Remember, if you're widowed or divorced, you may be eligible for benefits that can increase your check. Really, our solution for this, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dan here in a second, is a customized strategy going forward regarding Social Security. That everyone needs a personalized Social Security claiming analysis to understand how and when to apply and how their monthly benefit will fit into their overall retirement income plan. And Dan, I'll turn it back over to you to get through the rest of these.
Okay, great. So, here's what Social Security personnel can and can't do. They can estimate your benefits. They can tell you the amount that you're entitled to, but they can't project future benefits through scenario planning. And they can't help with innovative strategies designed to maximize benefits, right? When Seth and I produce a customized plan for people with collection of Social Security strategies, we provide all the break evens and all the information, but we really have no dog in the fight, right? It's still your claim. You're going to decide on it. We can give you the best advice. We can run the numbers. We can tell you exactly, hey, this is where the numbers cross over. You're better off taking it early. You're better off waiting late if some of the projections are in there. But the key thing is the most important thing is if you're married at some point down the road, one of you is going to go before the other. Okay. I know that much. Over 34 years, we've been doing this a long time. You will have to look at these different options when it comes to looking at survivor benefits. And so the key thing is making sure that you've got those strategies figured out. You might already be too late. Maybe you're already collecting, and that's fine. But certainly you're still going to go through collection strategies that are different than what you're doing right now once you lose a spouse. And for people that have not begun collection at this point, we're trying to make sure that you don't make any bad mistakes by going too early. So the key thing is making sure you're doing it online, making sure that you're basically not relying on what somebody in Social Security at a Social Security office or over the phone is telling you to do. They are not able to help you plan for benefits for down the road. Okay. You have questions, we can help, right? So when should you apply for Social Security benefits? We look at that. We'll look at that with you. What if I want to keep working? What if I've already applied? Again, Seth mentioned before, sometimes it does make sense to rescind that application in the first 12 months. Even for people that started collecting and they're beyond the 12 months and then they came in for a windfall, we've done that too. We basically will stop the collection. We cannot pay the benefits back, but we'll stop collecting. Let's suppose somebody took it at 62, wrong decision, 64 years old. They've collected for 2 years now. They can't obviously rescind the application itself. You know, a lot of times we'll have them stop collecting, and we'll go back in at 70, and they will make a big readjustment. We'll only have a penalty for those 2 years that they collected as well. So how much is the benefit going to be? How do I coordinate spousal benefits? What's the best long-term strategy for my situation, right? Seth mentioned it before. Your friend is not an expert in Social Security, okay? We don't even consider ourselves experts with Social Security. And we teach enrolled agents, accountants in New York State about collection because most people are asking their accountants, hey, what do I do? You know, I'm going to be 65 this year or 62 or 66, 67 or 70. What should I do? And a lot of information was being given out that was incorrect. So we spent a lot of time educating people to make sure that we don't see people coming in our office afterwards and they've made an uncorrectable mistake that really is a huge mistake. And what do you do next? So the key thing is it's too important for guesswork, right? So let us help you protect your nest egg, maximize your income at retirement by looking at that Social Security picture as we kind of go forward as well. Break-even analysis is kind of what we run. You know, I know it doesn't give you much to look at here, but, you know, we try and put all the information in so that in this case, it lets somebody know that based on their given situation, that they have a break even at somewhere close to 80 years old. So if you have two people that, hey, you know, say, hey, you know, I lived to my 90s. You know, my parents lived to my 95, 100 years old. You know, if you have longevity, if you're healthy, you're taking care of yourselves, you know, maybe you'll roll the dice and just say, okay, I'm okay with waiting longer than taking it earlier. And we tell people, remember, you know, we don't need to have both people alive for this situation to work. And we kind of laugh about it, but we really don't. You know, if survivor benefits are going to be greater for one of you eventually to wait, you know, since obviously the surviving spouse will receive the higher of the two checks eventually, we want one check to be as high as possible because at some point down the road, that surviving spouse is either going to keep the check they already had if it's the highest one already, or their check's going to stop and they're going to jump up to that one either way. Either way, going through the break-even analysis is huge, and that really helps us look at everything and helps you as well. And that's a total benefit analysis as well that we kind of run as well, going through the customization. So requesting a Social Security analysis meeting is very easy. It's a complimentary 1-hour service. We review the scenarios for claiming strategies. And typically, you know, Joyce is going to include a couple of things. The first thing that she's going to include right now in the chat box is providing a calendar link to be able to sign up for a 1-hour consultation regarding, you know, collection strategy. So you'll see that below in the chat box. We'll put you directly into our calendar so that we can go through that as well. And then our office, if you choose to contact us without going into our calendar, you can contact us at our phone number, 226-1200. You can email us at dmurphy@murphywealth.com. We'd love to be able to sit down with you, go through all your options so that you understand everything, especially before you go and make a potential mistake. You should sit down with somebody in order to make sure that you're collecting the way you should. And why wouldn't you? I mean, it's so much easier to do it in the comfort of our online, rather than going into the office in Poughkeepsie, or calling over the phone and having to wait an hour, 2 hours, make an appointment. So much easier to do that. So we hope you enjoyed the information today. We know that we threw a lot at you. If there's any questions at all, then you can send Joyce those. And I don't think there's a lot, but let's see if there's any questions that anybody had sent in.
There's just one question, and that is if there's a certificate of that is received after this webinar.
For someone that is actually on for professional.
It's an anonymous person. They just wanted to know if they receive a certificate for today.
So we typically can give out a certificate for continuing education for accounting. So if somebody would just email us, and we'll make sure to send the actual certificate, so they get credit for the hour. Good question.
That was the only one.
Okay, well, listen, once again, thank you for joining us today. And if there's anything that we can do with Social Security, contact us, and we hope to see you at the next couple of webinars that are coming up.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.